Someday, I will stop gathering so many physical books when my TBR is already miles long. But today is not that day. Hello everyone, it's book haul time. One of my favorite videos to film because I get to show you all the books that have come into my library the last month. This is a very exciting stack. There are so many new releases, so much fantasy. I have actually read a couple already, which doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I think it's safe to say that I can brag about it. So look at me being a good booktuber. So let's go ahead and just dive into these because there are a decent amount of books. So the first book I want to show off was sent to me by Blackstone Publishing, who is sponsoring today's video. And they gave me the opportunity to read and own this beautiful edition of The Great Gatsby. Though this is a classic that was written in 1925, the infamous Jazz Age, told from Nick Carraway's point of view about a wealthy young man called J. Gatsby. We all know the story. It takes place during the First World War, highlighting the tough economic times in America and excelling upon many levels. It's won so many awards. It's very unforgettable. The characters themselves are very unforgettable, but this new shiny hardcover collector's edition definitely does not show its age. We have a typography cover, which is really cool. The font title makes it look like vinyl records, which fits the wild party theme of the story. It is very shiny. The spine is also gilded and textured. In the back of it has a quote that says, "The timeless, tragic tale of unrequited love from one of the 20th century's most iconic authors." But that is not the coolest thing about it. We have a few illustrations throughout the book that showcase some of the most iconic scenes. And they are in full color. They are gorgeous. This one I think is my favorite. It is just so colorful and vibrant. Super old school. It kind of reminds me of a painting that would be hanging up in my grandmother's living room. The detail in this edition is mind-blowingly impressive. Truly a stunner. They put a lot of time and effort designing this, and you can own it yourself by clicking the link in my description box. It will take you straight to their storefront. If you are big into classics and love owning those really pretty special editions, hell, I've seen some readers with entire bookshelves dedicated to that stuff, then this one in particular will definitely stand out. Or you can check out their audiobook, which is narrated by Tanner Buchanan, who's the star of Cobra Kai and the Netflix film He's All That. He gives a fresh, nuanced, and creative approach to this story. So Blackstone Publishing gives you some really great options to experience a story either for the first time or all over again in a really fun way. Again, click the links down below, and thanks for them for sponsoring today's video. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and keep going with that really cool editions theme. I have the Tao of Drizzt, which Harper Voyager offered me. This book is so freaking beautiful. We have this slip case, which you can take off, and it showcases Drizzt's face in all of his glory. Very menacing, honestly. And I don't know if you can tell on camera, but there is a border around all the text, and it makes it look like you're reading from his scroll, which is very immersive. So what is this book exactly? Well, we all know by now that R.A. Salvatore has published numerous novels for each of his signature multi-volume series, but this here is a collection of wisdom and philosophy from our favorite dark elf Drizzt. One of my absolute favorite things about fantasy books is when an author creates a new spin-off series from favorite characters, and Salvatore has created multiple series revolving around the evolution of Drizzt, and this is the newest addition to that universe. We have even more knowledge here to explore. It's perfect for fans, new and old alike. If you are a D&D fan, honestly, fantasy RPG, anything, these books should be on your radar. Okay, moving along to the books that Orbit sent me, we have this beautiful hardcover of Ithaca. So when I talked about this book in my September releases video, I mentioned that I had hoped the gold on the cover, which is kind of blinding you right now, sorry. I was really hoping that it was going to be shiny, and our wishes have been granted. It has a gold foiling on the front. There is a sheen to it. Honestly, it just upped the quality and excitement even more for me. You can tell they really put a lot of love in designing this one. So if you are a fan of mythology, then I'm happy to put this on your radar if it wasn't already. This is a new historical fantasy in the style of Circe, Song of Achilles, you know the drill. The story is narrated by Hera, the goddess of wives and marriage, and it takes place after the Trojan War, which is a really fascinating time period. Claire North portrays Hera, and how she speaks and reacts to what unfolds is modernized and unique. Plus, we have a story about the women who are left behind for 17 years since the men of their island left to fight with King Odysseus, and what that means for a kingdom without a king and how those women must survive. It's a powerful sounding story wrapped up in a beautiful book. Notorious Sorcerer. This is a book I haven't gotten to yet, though I mentioned it in my September TBR, but it sounds right up my alley. I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping to squeeze it into October, actually, because I now have this physical copy, which, let's be real, is always way more fun to read. It's such a pretty book, and it also has a really cool map, which is going to be very helpful. There is the map in all of its glory. Maps and fantasy books should be mandatory, let's be real. It's the first book in a new series called Burnished City. The magic is solely focused on alchemy. We have a character who lives in the slums, and he is only able to get by hopping to different dimensions, collecting ingredients for the upper class alchemists. Well, he suddenly comes across a dangerous ingredient that could shift the reality of the city and possibly destroy it. I think it sounds really cool with the mention of like different dimensional planes, and our character can traverse between them. It sounds really cool, inviting, and very unique. Light Perpetual. This chunker of a freaking fantasy is the third and final book to the Hussite series, written by the author who wrote the famous Witcher books. Orbit republished these modern Polish classics, releasing one every year in English, and it's now coming to a close. So if you've read the Witcher books and enjoyed yourself enough, then you can check these out. It's a historical-based fantasy, so very different. I have heard this series has a very good ending, arguably better than the Witcher books. Who knows for sure? It's very subjective, but with an established historical event, totally makes sense. So if you're looking for an adventure across the war-riddled landscape of the 15th century, then you have these. I'm excited about them myself. One Dark Window. This is the first book to a fantasy duology, which are very hard to come by. And I gotta say, this book in person is so much prettier than seeing it in photos or on video, because the gold around the edges is foiled and shiny. Look at that. It is a really gorgeous book in person. I kind of wish the foil extended to the spine though. It also maybe to the back so that you could appreciate it when it's shelved, but nonetheless, it's very pretty. So into this, we are following a woman who is living in this eerie, misty castle with a monster in her head called Nightmare because of an infection she had at birth. She has a run-in with a highwayman who puts her in the path of danger of being found out that she has magic, which is a big no-no in this world. So this one sounds dark and twisty. Honestly, such a great fall read, or even like a winter read, actually. I'm going to have to read this really soon that I could maybe put it in a winter recommendations video. Anyways, I'm really excited for it. The setting has a very ominous feel to it, and I hope it's as atmospheric as it sounds. A Dowry of Blood. Look at this brand new cover design. I'll put a photo of what it previously looked like. Orbit is republishing this one with a more sultry look, and as I have read this one, it was my first read of October. Very fitting for spooky season with the vampire-focused story. Sultry is probably a more tame word for this book, if I'm being honest. It's a little bit more erotic than I expected, but I'll spare you the details for now, as I'll go more into my thoughts in my October wrap-up video. But the book itself is really pretty. So underneath the dust jacket, it is black and red. This book is bloody as hell, so it honestly works. And on the front, we have this engraved quote from the story. So just a quick basic synopsis. It's a gory vampire story about Constanta, who is saved by a vampire by transforming her into a vampire. And she goes from a peasant life to now an ancient immortal bride, living and killing by her husband's side out of necessity, but she literally can't leave him, even with all the abuse she is put through. It's a very heartbreaking story. So many trigger warnings for this one. Seriously, don't take that lightly. Even as someone who can handle anything, it's like, whoa, this is not only hard to read, but because of the narcissism, but the sexy time scenes as well. And the next book that I have here is Tell Me What Really Happened, which is a book I have never heard of and was sent to me unsolicited from Source Books, I believe. But the packaging was really cool, so I mean, whatever. It has the slipcase around the actual paperback. The front of this says, "Where is Maylee Hayes?" And I thought that was actually the title, but no. The title is on the actual paperback. And also on the back of this, there is a police report that you can fill out. And it also says, "The biggest mystery of 2023. So this came very early. So this is a YA thriller that's supposed to be The Breakfast Club meets the usual suspects, and it's written in a very unique way. It's told entirely through first-person police interviews of 4 teens over the course of just several hours about how they went camping and something went horribly wrong. Honestly, it sounds really gripping, especially with how it's going to be flipping back and forth between these teenagers as they account what happened through their eyes about a missing friend, I assume, with the whole like, where is Maylee Hayes promo? Oh, okay, so here is a good example of like the interviews. That's probably going to make it a really fast read. Tell me you have a cat without telling me you have a cat. Next up, I have this beautiful hardcover copy of Loot, which Tor sent over. This is supposed to be like pure folk horror, and I'm pumped to read it. So there's a myth that on the mysterious island of Loot, every 7th summer, 7 people must die. That definitely doesn't make me want to go and visit and move there. But after Nina, our main character, meets her now husband, a native of Loot, that's exactly what she does. She moves to the island and becomes Lady Treadway. And apparently the locals believe that the deaths of 7 grant them luck and prosperity, as well as protection for the island from the outside world. Nina believes this is all superstitious nonsense, but is it? Well, that day is approaching. This sounds so mysterious and weird. I hope it's as gripping as the synopsis feels. It's been getting great reviews, and I hope to give it a great one myself, so I'm crossing my fingers. This little hardcover is not only adorable, but I really like how the purple extends to the in papers. So Tor also offered me a copy of Second Spear, and I just love this cover so much that I had to accept, though this is book 2 in the series. The first one is called The Border Keepers. They said that you can read these as standalones, so that enticed me even more. If that's true, though, I will read the first book anyways. I really don't know much about this world other than there are different realms and vengeful gods. In fact, the kingdoms, which there are hundreds of apparently in this world, are ruled by demons and gods, which sounds so cool. So our main character here is a warrior, and she is second in command of her tribe. I don't know, man. It sounds very deep and detailed for such a short book, but if the author can manage to create a good complex story in this amount of time, I am here for it all day. Okay, and finally, the very last book that is in this book haul is Lavender House, another book that I have already read, and I actually reviewed it in a previous video, so I will keep this short and I'll link that review down below. I also did an entire reading vlog for this book, so it's gotten a lot of attention from me. This is a story that is a mystery novel set in the 1950s that is compared to Knives Out, but with a queer twist. Andy is a ex-cop who is fired for being gay, and he is invited into Lavender House where the head matriarch recently died. A very mysterious death, and it's up to Andy to figure out who the killer is. I think Lavender House brings some really unique features to the genre, but unfortunately for me, it lacked in some areas, specifically the mystery itself. It's still a very light, fun read with some serious topics. It isn't like a bloody, gory thriller. It's more of a cozy one. So if you're looking for that, you could try this one out. So those are all the books I have hauled recently. I know there are more on the way, so I guess expect another haul in the near future, as always, because that's how it is in this house. Also, don't forget to check out Blackstone Publishing to get yourself a copy of The Great Gatsby, either the audiobook or this beautiful collector's edition. The links will be down below for you. Tell me below if you want reviews from me soon on any of the books I talked about today. Tell me what you've hauled recently. I'd love to know. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things because it helps the channel out a lot. And until we meet again, happy reading.